Today I thought that I would do my June and July wrap up and show you the books that I read during the months of June and July and basically what I thought about them. Now, I read basically 4 and 5-star books in June and July. So the first book I read in June was the first book in the School for Good and Evil series by Saman Chanani. I had this book on my shelf for over a year. It's classed as a middle grade book and it took me quite a while to actually pick it up. One, because I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it, and two, because I have so many books on my bookshelf that I need to read, even though I keep on buying more books. This book is basically about a place where for the past 200 years, every year, either a boy or girl gets kidnapped to be taken to the School for Good and Evil. And it follows the two main characters, Sophie and Agatha, who automatically think that they know what school they're going to be put into when they get kidnapped. And they get kidnapped and it turns out they basically get put in different schools. So Agatha gets put in the School for Good and Sophie gets put in the School for Evil. Now, the whole world building this book's got like pictures in, the whole character development and how you find how each character copes with the schools that they've been put in, because at first they're both convinced that they are in the wrong schools and they're trying their best to be put in the schools that they believe they should be in. Then you have the development of the characters where they're starting to get used to the schools that they've been put in, and it turns out that Agatha could be good and Sophie could be evil. This book was so cute. The world building, the character development was just amazing. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I have the second 2 books on my bookshelf and I cannot wait to get to them. So that was my first book that I read in the month of June. The next book that I read in the month of June was The Diviners by Libba Bray. Now this is set in 1920s New York and follows Evie, and basically she's been shipped off from her boring hometown by her parents to live with her Uncle Will, who owns a museum, and he is basically into the occult. And Evie is a diviner and she doesn't want her uncle to discover her secret, but he is working on a set of murders and basically she helps him out. It's full of intrigue. You feel so much like you are in 1920s New York. The way Libba Bray describes the setting, you feel like you are totally immersed in New York in the 1920s. Flapper girls, the atmosphere. It's quite a dark book to read. There are like pages that are quite scary. I loved this book. It took me a couple of days to read it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I have the second book in the series. I'm not sure if it's a series or trilogy. I don't know. Lair of Dreams. I can't wait to get to it. A definite read, guys. Definitely go and check it out. This book I picked up at the airport and I read this in one sitting. I have a full review of this book, so I'm not going to rabbish on about it too much in this video. And that is Everything by Nicola Yoon. I adored this book. This book, the way I fell in love with the two characters, Maddie and Ollie, was the way I felt about Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. So cute. It's about a young girl called Maddie who's basically allergic to everything in the world, and for 17 years she hasn't left her home. All she knows is her mum and her nurse Carla. And then one day a young boy called Ollie moves next door and her life completely changes. Adorable. The plot twist will just make you angry and then it will make you stop and think. If you haven't read this book, guys, go and read it, because it is one of the cutest books I have read this year, and I absolutely love it. Heading into the books I read in July, and the next book I'd seen on nearly everyone's booktube. The reviews it got were just 5-star. I ummed and ahed about buying it because I was a bit unsure of the elements of the book, because it's sci-fi based. I'd pick it up in Waterstones and I'd put it back down because I wasn't sure. One day I thought, sod it, I'm going to buy it, and it is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is one of the best books I have read so far this year. First of all, look at the cover, it is amazing. It is basically a sci-fi book about two rival mega companies that are in war, and basically the planet's fucked, yeah? And the two main characters, Katie and Ezra, separately are on two evacuating fleets, and it's about them communicating with each other and surviving on these fleets. And basically, you know, it's not just the fact that, you know, the planet's basically fucked and doesn't exist anymore. They have to deal with some major incidents on the fleets. It's told through instant messaging, emails, dossiers, security camera footage. This book deserves every single bit of hype that it has got on BookTube. It is absolutely amazing. I cannot wait for Gemini to come out. I think it's not coming out till like November in the UK, but if you haven't read it, guys, please do so, because this book is so good, and it's definite 5 stars for me. Another book that I had on my bookshelf for over a year, the last book in the series came out a couple of months ago, and I was seeing it everywhere, and everyone was reviewing it and talking about it, and I stopped myself from watching these the videos on it because I didn't want to get spoils. And it is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Now, I listened to this book and read it at the same time. I have an Audible subscription. The actor Will Patton read it, and first of all, I loved his accent. I loved his American accent. It was so good. The way he did the different accents for the different characters was really good, and you know, you believed they didn't sound the same for each of them. The problem with Audible sometimes is I've got so many books that I think, yeah, I want to listen to them, and when I press play on the audio sample, some of the voices just are quite draining, and I'm like, oh no. But anyway, back to the book. This is a book about Blue, and her whole family are psychics, and she's basically been told all her life that if she kisses her true love, he will die. Now, she meets the Raven Boys, and her true love, Gansey, is one of the Raven Boys. And obviously, you know, if she kisses him, he will die. Now, at first, you know, they don't really seem to get on, and she seems to be developing a thing with another Raven Boy called Adam. They are following a king called Glendower, and it is basically about their adventures, and there's a bit of a twist with regards to one of the Raven Boys that I didn't see coming. Maybe you did, but I didn't. I've gone out and I've purchased the whole next 3 books in this series. Can't wait to get to them. This was just so good. It was a 5-star read for me, and yeah, I would definitely highly recommend it. Most of these books that I've read in June and July seem to be books that I've had on my bookshelf for over the year, for months, and I just haven't got to them. So the next book that I read in July was The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. This basically, I'll read the blurb on the back. The first wave took out 500,000 people. The second wave put that number to shame. The third wave lasted a little longer, 12 weeks, 4 billion dead. In the fourth wave, you can't trust that people are still people. And the fifth wave, no one knows, but it's coming. This is a book about a young girl called Casey. and basically how she survives on her own in this fucked up world, basically. I loved this book. I thought this book was brilliant. I gave it, and I'll have to have a look on my phone because I cannot remember how many stars I gave it. Let me see. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This book, this book was so good. The only thing that's put me off reading this book was the fact that the second book, The Infinite Sea, which I have the whole series now, didn't get really good reviews compared to this one. So it did put me off a little bit reading it. But, oh, I loved it. It could be a bit slow in places compared to some of the other books I read in June and July, which was so fast-paced and page-turners. This was a little bit slower, but nevertheless, I really, really enjoyed it, and I would definitely highly recommend. After all that fantasy in the month of June and July, well, mainly fantasy, I wanted to pick up a book that was really, really quite simple to read. And the book I decided to pick up, because I'd seen it all over the place, was Awful Auntie by David Walliams, who, if you didn't know, is a British comedian. He's also a judge on Britain's Got Talent. These are kids' books, but oh my god, it was amazing. Reminded me so much of Roald Dahl books. I loved Roald Dahl books when I was a kid. I'll even love Roald Dahl books now. I'm 39 years of age, and Roald Dahl books are some of the best books that I think you can read. Obviously, apart from Harry Potter, that goes without saying, because that's just amazing. This is a book about a young girl called Stella, who is the heir to Saxby Hall, and her parents are basically tragically died, and it is about her awful auntie. And it is basically her story about how her auntie is trying to get the deeds to Saxby Hall because, like, Stella's becomes total heir to it and she owns it, but her auntie wants to get her hands on it. It's got pictures in. Some of them. I've gone out and I bought Gangster Granny by him as well, and I'm going to pick up more, even though these are kids' books. I cannot wait till my niece and nephew get to an age when I can read these books to them. It's quite dark in places, quite scarily enough, for me to like read it to them like now. We're only like 4 and 2, and they probably won't be that bothered. But I can't wait till they get to an age where I can read it, where I can read these these books, where I can read doll books to them. Yeah, so funny, so cute. 5 stars out of 5 stars. Definitely go and pick it up. So that was my June and July wrap up, guys. I have a lot of fantastic books I'm reading. I want to read. I'll show you the book I'm currently reading, or I've literally just started about an hour ago. A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. I'm so pumped for this book because it is meant to be absolutely amazing. The first book was amazing. This is basically supposed to be better. It's a chunk of a book. I'm about 2 or 3 chapters in.